Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome, everybody. So this is our holiday edition of Talkback Tuesday. We wanted tonight to talk about Thanksgiving and ways we celebrate it, some thoughts about how to do that, how to include people, how we want to engage in Thanksgiving this year, especially when this really strange time. So we've invited our family ministry team to come in and help give us some advice about how to celebrate Thanksgiving. So we have with us Jennifer Kenny, who's the Director of Family Ministry, Jill Brinkerhoff, who's the Director of Children's Ministry, Kim Salen, who is, Kim, I don't know what your title is.
I am the coordinator for MOPS.
That's right. Of course, I knew that.
And when there's midweek childcare happening, I coordinate that also.
She gets to hold babies midweek when we're not in COVID, which is pretty fun. And then Lauren Carr, who's our high school intern. So we're glad that you're all here. We're going to start tonight by talking a little bit about Thanksgiving and how just to give thanks. So you may want to go to the speaker view on your screen so that when one of us is talking, you'll kind of get the full view. So we're going to begin by, I just want to read a portion of Psalm 136 as we begin. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Oh, give thanks to the God of gods, for his steadfast love endures forever. Oh, give thanks to the Lord of lords, for steadfast love endures forever. That seems a very appropriate psalm as we begin to think about Thanksgiving. And I wanted to ask our panel, what are ways that you're finding helpful to engage others in giving thanks during Thanksgiving as you think about family and making Thanksgiving more than just food, though it is about food and we're going to get there. What are some ways you are helping your family really think about being thankful? And anyone can begin. Jennifer.
Okay, I'll go first. My family just did the Zoom communion together, and Pastor George asked us to look at each other and fill in the blank. What am I thankful for? Or I'm thankful for. And then, you know, our kids both looked at us and said, I'm thankful for my family. And I said, I'm thankful for that we've been healthy. I think during this time, we've recognized things are starting to get stripped away. And so we really are thinking a little bit more about the things that matter. Grandparents, family, extended family, our nuclear family were some of the things that we really thought about. And as I've had conversations with neighbors, it's been some of the same things. Just real sense of this last 9 months has caused us to be reflective on what's real and what we can put our weight on. So that's kind of what I've been experiencing. I don't want to hog the airtime though. So if Kim, Jill, or Lauren want to add anything.
Kim, how about you?
I don't live near my family these days, so I haven't been interacting with them about what they're grateful for. We're 2 states away. I talked to them yesterday and said, can we please at least FaceTime on Thanksgiving at some point? So I'm hoping on that call we'll be able to share some things that we're grateful for, kind of go around a virtual circle and do that.
Kim and Lauren, how about you?
I was going to say pretty much the same thing. My confession is I don't feel like we've really started yet in terms of verbalizing our thanks for things. But we do have a tradition on Thanksgiving at our meal to go around and say something that we're thankful for. So it'll be a small group around our table this year, but I like Jill's idea to do that virtually. Planning to do a Zoom call with our extended family. So maybe I'll initiate that. It's a good idea.
How about you, Lauren?
Yeah, I think traditionally, like Kim was saying, my family goes around and we say, talk about things throughout the year that we were thankful for, we are thankful for. And this year, again, we haven't really started. As we canceled our Thanksgiving plans this year, we kind of emailed back and forth about how thankful we are for health and for the ways that we do get to interact with each other, just in those email exchanges. But yeah, with family this year, it's been tough.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about ways to initiate being thankful with others, and over email or texting, maybe Instagram pictures. I don't know if you have thought about that, or ways that you might think about engaging with sending pictures to one another, but that'd be a very interesting way to engage, because we're all separated. I know that Ellen and I are going to be here with a couple of friends, but our family's 3,000 miles away. So we won't be with them, and we'll have to think of creative ways to be with them. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about just what it means to think about Thanksgiving in a different way. We're really moving away in our country from the mythology about Thanksgiving, that first Thanksgiving, and really, I think, healthily moving to a place where we're thinking about Thanksgiving more as a harvest festival. And I know that, Jennifer, you and I have talked a little bit about that. Do you want to expand on those thoughts, kind of where that harvest festival idea comes from and how that's a helpful image for us?
Yeah, I think Chris and I think even with the Family Ministries staff, I was reflecting on having been in Europe during October and watching what was, a Thanksgiving harvest festival in the works. And that's that members of the congregation would bring their first fruits to the altar of a church and offer them to God, and then that church would distribute those. I don't know what she's talking. The church would distribute those offerings to the poor people in the community. And so I think that I've seen this idea of Thanksgiving tied more toward a harvest time than in America. We celebrate late in November. And so we kind of miss that natural rhythm of a harvest. The Canadians celebrated a little earlier. And so I think they've aligned a little bit more with the rest of the world. And so when you see it outside of the American context, it takes on a totally different meaning. I brought these funny decorations because as a kid, I remember these little paper turkeys. And I remember my mom had wax candles that were pilgrims, and we had all those images. They're not part of our table set anymore. And they're not easy to find, those images. And so I think really thinking about what can this holiday be about, and how can we think about making an offering. That's something that's really been helpful in my own mind as I've wrestled with, sort of the American story versus a worldwide story.
Yeah, that's really good. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about then, as we think about broader family. So we're going to be on Zoom and other ways of connecting with our family. A lot of us have family members that aren't followers of Jesus. They're not Christian. They're not religious at all. What are some ways we can help our family members engage in being thankful, even if they're not people of faith? Are there prompts we can give them, or we can way to shape that so that we can really engage others in being thankful? Kim, why don't we start with you?
When I think about that, I think of just like the value of being an example in thankfulness. I'm not sure that I'm one to be like really upfront about like, let's thank God for these things if I know that family members are not believers. So I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. I just think I tend to lead by example. So expressing my thanks to God in front of them. And simple things like including a prayer at the beginning of our meal. And we do that knowing that not everybody who's at our table is really praying necessarily. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
no, it does.
What came to my head.
Jill, how about you?
Yeah, I think some of my family members who are kind of on the fringes of faith, maybe grew up in the church and are absolutely not a part of it anymore, still understand the concept of thankfulness, even just if God isn't in the picture. So they can go around the table and they can say, I'm thankful for health, or I'm thankful for our new house, or things like that. But I agree with Kim that for me, the way that I can tie it into the Lord the best is just by sharing my story with them and my experiences, and saying, and tying the Lord into what I'm grateful for, or saying, you know, he's walked with me through these really hard things that have happened in the last 2 years in my personal life. And those family members know what those hard things are. And as I'm talking about those things and saying, I'm grateful that the Lord was with me every step of the way, and I can point to that in some tangible ways for them too, just as we're sitting around the table talking and reminiscing about the last year. That's probably the best way for me to spark that conversation a little bit more, or to spark this, to have the spokes turn in their minds a little bit, is just like Kim said, just hearing about my personal relationship with Jesus and how he has walked with me through ups and downs. For sure.
I think especially in a COVID world where there's just a lot of hardship, that it's really important to figure out, how do we think about Thanksgiving, and how do we communicate that in a way that's really sincere, and a way that allows people to see something into our lives about our relationship with God and why we're really thankful. Because I think there's going to be a lot that's really hard as we talk this year. So I think it'd be helpful to be able to share those stories. We're going to talk about food, because I love food, and this is Thanksgiving. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about the foods that we like to make at Thanksgiving, and best way to cook a turkey. We're going to turn to a cooking show in just a minute, but Lauren has a story about cooking turkeys that I want her to start with.
I do, and it's actually a story about not cooking turkeys. I'm 23. I've spent all of my Thanksgivings with someone else cooking food for me. Grandparents, parents, on both sides of my family. I've never been the one that like is in the kitchen doing things. I bring a dessert or a pie or something. And this year, I'm not doing Thanksgiving with either side of my family. I'm doing Thanksgiving with my roommates. And I was talking on the phone with my mom last week, and she said, Lauren, turkeys are on sale at Fred Meyer right now. You should go grab one. It needs to thaw for a week. And I was like, a week of a turkey just sitting on my counter? That doesn't make sense. I'm never going to cook a turkey. I can't. That's so gross to me, to just have a turkey sitting out for an entire, that's so gross. So we're not cooking turkey on Thanksgiving is the end of that story. We are probably making pasta or something just so cheesy and cheap and 23. But that is my turkey story for this year. I have no idea how a turkey works.
So my contribution to the stories about turkeys, when I was growing up, we would have dozens of family members. My mother always got the largest turkey she could, be 28, 29 pounds, just enormous. And it wouldn't fit the refrigerator. We lived in a cold part of California, and we had a screened porch. And so my mother would put it out there. She would get it the day before, be a fresh turkey, put it out there. It would be 32 degrees, 30 degrees. And we'd go to church and come back, and mom then would get up at some ungodly hour and put it in the oven. On this particular Thanksgiving, we were about to go to Thanksgiving service. And of course, the screen porch locked the turkey out there. And as we were leaving, the cats were in the dining room. And mom said, put the cats out. So my dad picked up the cats and threw them into the porch. We came back from our Thanksgiving service with two very stuffed cats and a half-eaten turkey. It was a frightening picture. I thought it was funny, but you couldn't laugh because, of course, it was everyone's Thanksgiving turkey. But living in a small town, mom called the butcher. She got over there at 10 o'clock at night. He came, opened the store, got her a turkey. It's a great story, but my father almost didn't live to tell it. So that's not really a cooking story. It's just a gross story about cats and turkey. But I want to hear from the rest of you, besides Lauren, who's not cooking a turkey. How do you plan to cook your turkey? What's your favorite way? And have there been disasters, and have there been successes? Jennifer, we'll start with you.
Well, I think this year, in fact, right now, my husband is supposed to be consulting our recipe book to make sure he gets the brine correct.
Oh, you're brining.
I think we're going to brine and then smoke the turkey.
Are you dry brining or wet brining?
I think it's a dunk, but that's, I think, what he's trying to decide, because he's been reading conflicting reports on the dry versus wet brine. So yep. We will have a smoked turkey this year. One year he had a buddy who loaned us a, I don't even know if it was a real deep fryer, but we deep fried a turkey outside. And that's actually the most dangerous.
No kidding.
It was like, big heavy gloves and, face covering. And so that one really felt like adventuresome.
Did it taste good?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
But I think we're now at this place in life where we're trying to find the path of least resistance. So we're trying to find the best flavor with the least amount of work.
Yeah.
And so I think
the question is, how many hours do you smoke a turkey for it to be done?
Well, it depends on the weight, Chris. And I think there's a nice little chart in our green egg cookbook that's going to tell us.
So you're doing it the green egg way.
Yep.
It's going to be at least 3 or 4 hours, right?
Yeah. And then my brother, who lives in Texas, gave some advice about spatchcocking it, which is when you cut it right down the middle and, open it up.
Wow.
But I think that might be beyond our pay grade this year. So that's more of a Texas approach.
Wow. Okay. All right. Kim, how about you?
Well, I don't try anything outrageous. We just stuff the turkey with some onions and carrots and lemons and stick it in the oven. And I just follow the little sheet or the little thing that comes with the turkey that tells me how long to cook it. So nothing special for us. I do have a funny turkey story though.
Great. Let's hear it.
Are you ready for it? Okay. So usually we are with a really large group. Sounds kind of like, Chris, your childhood. And so one year when we were hosting, we had this massive turkey that wouldn't fit in our pan that we had, our roasting pan. So we used one of those foil pans and cooked it. It was beautiful, got it out of the oven. And my husband, Kurt, went to start carving it and he cut into the pan. Like he started cutting it while it was still in the foil pan, and he cut the foil so that all the juices started pouring out the bottom.
Nice.
And our dog was standing right next to him, and it was literally like a waterfall of grease coming over the counter, and he just stood under there and like thought he had like reached heaven. Yeah. Just like licking it up as it poured down him. He smelled like grease and gravy for a long time after that. And we joke that now, like anytime a turkey's in the oven, he's just like looking for my husband for the next step.
That's actually awesome. That's really great.
Yeah.
And the dog survived, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's shiny coat and everything.
Oh yeah.
So none of you are turn the turkey over halfway. That is a method. You cook it for half the time and then you flip it over to make sure it has an even cook.
Well, it's interesting. We were reading about putting ice packs on the breast meat to keep it cooler so that it cooked at the same. And I don't know if ice packs are just the pre-temp. That's what we were reading about last night.
Yeah, it's a little scary, the options for the way you could cook. Jill, how about you? Do you have some great method for cooking a turkey?
I've never cooked a turkey. I barely know what the word brine even means. I keep looking at Jim Garris, who's an excellent cook, and seeing his reactions to things. No, I don't have a method. My family used to cook it in a bag though. So in the pan, but then in a bag because it makes it very moist. That's all I know.
Okay, so everyone who's on the call, we want you to put in the chat your favorite way to cook a turkey. We don't want the whole recipe, but just in shorthand, ways you cook a turkey. Because it'd be interesting to see, people, now Ellen once did turkey Wellington. So it was an incredible experience. So turkey in this incredible Wellington pasty, it was amazing because she got bored with doing a turkey. So it was kind of incredible, yeah. And we need to hear from the Garrises because in the chat, so Kelly has written, "Let my sister do it." That's her favorite way of cooking a turkey. That's awesome. That's really great.
That's wise. That's wise.
Yeah, this is the best thing.
I do think that's kind of an interesting turn. Like, when do you go from being underneath a tradition, where you're in a family or you're in an extended family where Uncle Bob always did this and Dad did this and Mom did this, and you grow up in such a way, and if you're with them until you're 40 and then they're gone, you're suddenly exposed with, oh no, I've got to figure out how to do all of this.
Yeah.
There's this moment in life, and it's not always when you get married. It's sometimes whenever you're outside of that traditional umbrella that you're suddenly realizing what you do know and what you don't know. And I think most of us just know how to open the can of cranberry jelly that's got the ridges on it.
That's right. So Karen wrote that QFC is cooking hers this year. Very smart.
Smart.
Yep. Paul is doing a traditional roasted one. So, so in my family, the tradition was whoever hosted Thanksgiving cooked the turkey. And my mother had 2 sisters, and one of her sisters was a terrible cook. And so when we ever went to Thanksgiving to Aunt Mamie's house, the turkey was always dry as a bone. It was like eating sawdust. It was horrible. And that's when gravy was really popular at Thanksgiving, because you had to drown it to try to get it down. Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Christmas Vacation? Because that reminds me of the scene where they cut it open and it just dissolves almost.
My aunt was a delightful person. Just cooking was not her gift. It was just not what she did. So the Garrises are doing standard Betty Crocker.
Nice.
Oh, they said nobody's particularly fond of turkey, so the creativity goes into the sides. Nice. And we're going to talk about sides, but I want to talk about gravy for a minute, because actually I think as a cook, that's the most challenging thing to do, is to actually prepare gravy that's not lumpy or not just filled with flour or doesn't taste like anything. So we're going to go to the gravy experts, Kim and Jennifer.
I'll tell you mine, and then Kim's going to have the ringer. I think it was Carol Snow about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, gave me a make-ahead gravy recipe. And so I've got 4 or 5 turkey wings that I buy separately, and I'll roast them and make the gravy long before the meal, and then supplement with any of the drippings from the turkey if we do it by the oven. Now we're smoking it, so there won't be any grease or fat that we can use. So the make ahead is great because it takes an element of stress out of it, and the house smells wonderful for that day or two kind of before. So I'm a little bit late. So tomorrow is my make ahead gravy day.
Wow. And no lumps, right?
Well, yeah, I try not to, Chris, but that's still a challenge regardless of when you make it.
Yeah.
Kim, why don't you tell us what your secret method is?
My secret method is 2 words. It's Metropolitan Market. They make excellent gravy. And I was just thinking there might be a correlation between losing all the grease from that one turkey to changing it over to Met Market gravy.
Yes, could be related.
I am even asked to bring that when we're not the host and not making the turkey. Everybody on my side of the family, not so much my husband's, likes Met Market gravy better than anything else.
How do you buy it? Like, tell me, I don't have a Met Market.
It's like buying a thing of soup in their deli.
Okay.
And it's delicious. It's really good.
So,
and you can freeze it too.
It's important to note that Met Market is not sponsoring this night.
No, they're not.
They are amazing.
There's a Met Market right near our house. So, oops, sorry, it's loud over here.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. All right, so we need to talk a little bit about sides. So the Garrises are doing 3 kinds of cranberry sauce, homemade rolls, and 5 pies for 7 people. The Garrises totally win. That's amazing. So what I want to hear is creative side.
I'm doing one of the cranberries for the Garris feast and one of the pies. So let's not give them all the credit. I'll mute myself now.
Now we're getting into family tension. It's nice to have the family have clarity. That's really important. I want to know if there's anything new. If anybody's trying something new, you can put that on the chat. Is there a new side you're trying that you haven't tried before? And then I want to hear from our panel. Is there something new that you're trying that you haven't tried before? Or is it all traditional?
I make the same thing every year. It's only 4 ingredients. It's so easy. It was my great grandmother's recipe, and we just call it grape salad, but it's basically an ambrosia salad. It has marshmallows. You slice grapes in half, you stir them in with it, half a can of crushed pineapple, stir that in, and you let it sit for a few hours, and then you add Cool Whip it's always the favorite for all the kids at the meal, for sure.
Now, with your family,
but we call it a salad. It's really a marshmallow pile on your plate.
And my question is, was your grandmother from the Midwest?
She was from Pennsylvania.
Rural Western Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Farmland. So
yeah. Yes. Those are the kind of salads when I was growing up. Anyone from the Midwest or the rural parts of the country would make those kind of salads. Plus lime jello with a cocktail sauce. Yeah. There was a lot of that going on too. But how about the rest of you? Any new creative ways that you're doing sides? Or just traditional?
We have a traditional side that I do not like, that my dad requires. And I don't know if this is something that you all know. Rutabagas.
Really?
Yes. He has to have those every Thanksgiving.
Wow.
And then he used to require my grandmother to make him a mincemeat pie. And I can't remember if that was Thanksgiving or Christmas. But there was this sort of odd section of the table that were my dad's requirements. Kim and I were talking that our dads grew up, they were neighbors. Our dads are the same age, and they went to rival high schools outside of Philadelphia. And so Philadelphia and that little part of Pennsylvania has some funny food traditions. And that's what we blame it on, is that he's from the East. And
in my family, the strange sides were all Scandinavian. So pickled pig's feet, and getting to Christmas, things got even weirder. But there was a lot of lime prepared food that was disgusting, but the Norwegians loved it. So there was a lot going on. How about you, Kim? Specific sides that your family requires?
When we are with my husband's family, the drink that is served in the water goblets is root beer.
Really?
Yeah. I still think it's weird, but the first Thanksgiving I was with them, I was floored. I couldn't figure it out. They're walk around the table, with the 2-liter bottle of A&W and pour it into the crystal goblets. Wow.
Okay, the Garris is saying rutabagas were traditional in Christy and Marcy's family. Marcy, they're outing you again. Boy, you need to get Jim under control. But they've let go of the rutabaga, but now it's red cabbage, cooked in the Danish way. Well, I guess not the Norwegian way. We won't have any prejudice about that though, Jim. It's okay.
Hey, Lauren, I want to know what are your sides this year?
This year, I actually don't know, because I don't know what we're eating. I think it's going to be a game day decision, what we end up cooking. But traditionally, we're very traditional Thanksgiving people in my family. Although we do, on my mom's side of the family, we're very known for pranks with butter, where we take a scoop of butter and make it look like ice cream, vanilla ice cream, and give it to someone. So not really a side, but also a very strange thing to do with food. And we just kind of see who's going to eat it. Most of the time it's a young cousin, but they haven't seen the prank yet. Yes. Everybody else is a little bit burnt out on butter ice cream.
Yeah, because if they give it to the oldest person, they'd have a heart attack. So it's nice to give it to the youngest person. That's the important thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in my family this year, Ellen's trying different things from the Barefoot Contessa. So we have a series of different recipes we're trying because we're so far away from family. So that'll be interesting to see how that happens. And I'm baking bread. So we're going to kind of work at that. If you have any other creative sides, anybody put that in the chat. We'd love to hear what those are. And I want to know so Jim, you're going to have to unmute yourself. I don't know what.
Oh, you don't know what spanakopita is?
No.
Spanakopita is phyllo with spinach and feta cheese and a cream sauce and stuff. So it's that's my daughter Elizabeth's favorite food in the whole wide world, and it's traditionally you have it. So you have it at Easter, you have it at Christmas, and so it's going to be there at Thanksgiving as well. We'll make them in triangles, so it'll be spinach triangles, individual portions.
Okay, so now that you've said that, you have to deliver it to all the rest of us. That sounds
okay. Well, just put your addresses in the chat.
That sounds amazing. Wow. Okay, I'm starting to drool a little bit, so that's not good. I'm having trouble talking. That sounds amazing. I want to know what Thanksgiving food the panel has tried that you would never try again, besides the root beer that is weird, Kim.
Oh, I tried pumpkin pie without the sugar in it one year.
Why?
It's disgusting because my aunt accidentally forgot all the sugar in all the pumpkin pies. I don't recommend it. We had to throw all of them away. That's the only weird food I've had.
Yeah, that's not great. That's bad. How about some others?
Occasionally, my grandpa brings pickled herring, and I will not ever do that. That's just not for me.
And I just want to encourage you in that way. As a Scandinavian, we had a lot of pickled herring, and I think it's disgusting. Sorry if anybody who loves pickled herring, but wow.
My mom and my grandpa love it, and I just am not. No, thank you.
I'm with you on that one.
I grew up, and unfortunately, my son is the same way, very picky. And my Thanksgiving plate was typically monochromatic. The roll, the mashed potatoes, the gravy, the turkey, not touching each other, And so anything that was like creamed spinach or anything that was sort of a vegetable with cream and mushrooms, I steer clear of that stuff. Even the green bean casserole with cream of mushroom soup and the crunchy on top, that doesn't work for me.
Okay, I'm going to read this comment from Karen Greenwald. This is my favorite. I have to have the famous green beans casserole. I make it for 20 people and usually bring home 19 servings.
I hope I didn't offend you, Karen.
Karen, that's awesome. That's really great.
Leftovers for a month.
That's right. I don't think it freezes that well, but it's kind of, man, I'm trying to think if we've ever had a side that was a total failure. Growing up, I didn't like oysters. Now I love oysters, but growing up, I thought that was so weird. We always had kind of an oyster casserole. And when I was growing up, I hated it. Now I love it. So, that's probably something I would try. I don't know if anything that we've eaten, except my aunt's turkey that, again, was like eating sawdust, was horrible. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about pies. So there is, I get a flaky crust is hard. So I want to know, first of all, Marcy says this is a traditional salad for her family, cranberry orange jello with apples and celery.
Oh.
And
yeah.
Christy and she love it. Okay, my question is, does anybody else love it? Or is this just Jim's shaking his head?
People tolerate it because it's a tradition.
It is a tradition. But Christy and Marcy are the only two that really, truly love it.
Yeah. So that's what happens with traditions, right? We tolerate them if we can't.
Excuse me, what do you put in besides celery and cranberries, what else do you put in it?
It's ground cranberries.
Ground cranberries and apples.
And ground orange.
And ground orange.
I've had that before. It's really good, but I don't know how to make it. Thank you.
It's really funny.
Yeah, I think my grandma used to make that too. It's in a red jello, isn't it? With all those bits in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, that's just really funny. So we're going to go back to pies. And I want to know who's making their own pie crust and how do you make it flaky?
Very carefully.
Okay, Jennifer, what's your trick?
Well, I'm not making it this year, but Don has typically been our pie man. And I think that we're both stretched a bit thin. So I will say that the minute that Costco started selling the pumpkin pie for $5.99, we have had one in our, and it's not just one. Our kids eat it every single night. Like right about now, they'll say, I think it's pie time. But the butter, whether you use shortening, Chris, I'll let you announce the mystery ingredient because I think you've mastered it. And then, not rolling it too, you got to leave those layers to make it flaky. You can't, I don't know, you can't make it like Play-Doh. It's got to have those bumps.
Pastry work, we call it, you don't overwork the dough.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for.
Leave it elastic. So here's the mystery ingredient. It's vodka. If you put vodka in the dough, it's cold and it evaporates. And so it gets moisture to get together, but it evaporates and makes it really flaky. So, not that we have vodka in our home, but.
How much?
Yeah, how much? And do you put it, was it in the freezer beforehand and then you pour it in?
Doesn't matter, because it's going to go in the oven anyway. It's going to evaporate really quickly. It depends on, I don't know, I can't remember the exact amount. I have a relative who would say it's one shot for you, one shot for the pie, but we don't do that. So I think it's really clear, because the pies don't turn out when you start doing that. But it's a small amount of vodka, but you put it in because it evaporates so quickly. And so it becomes your moisture, and it helps the dough stay flaky and not sodden. So folks, you heard it here first. This is our own cooking show here on Talkback Tuesday. So I want you to put in the chat, Marcy makes crust from Crisco. Yep. Mm-hmm. So that's also a generational thing. My grandmother was a big Crisco person. And then, the Garrises, vinegar does the same thing as vodka, but vodka sounds more fun, which it is. And you don't have to buy it in a gallon form, folks. You can buy a small bottle of vodka. I want to hear in the chat what pies you are making and what are the pies you enjoy. So let me hear from the panelists, favorite pies of the family. Kim, how about you starting?
Well, we always make a pumpkin chiffon pie. In fact, I think that's the only thing I'm going to make this year, because there'll just be a few of us. So it's a graham cracker crust, so that's easy. There's no debate about how to do that. And then it has like a meringue mixed into a pumpkin mixture, and then you put it in the fridge, so it's not really cooked.
Nice.
It's
awesome.
It's good.
Jill, how about your family?
My family is usually too full after eating Thanksgiving food. So we
did that earlier. I can't believe that.
Yeah. We lived near Marie Callender's, so my family, we'd always buy our pies from Marie Callender's or from Costco. Focus on the other dishes.
Okay. Lauren, how about your family?
Yeah, so a lot of my family is gluten-free. And so my aunt makes this incredible gluten-free, dairy-free coconut cream pie using it's like top tier. She makes 3 of them because we all eat them all night. And she uses the gluten-free pie crust from Trader Joe's. And it is it's next level. It's flaky, but it's not like, it's not the gluten-free kind of flaky, you know, like it is top tier. It's incredible. Coconut cream, and it's dairy free somehow. I don't know how she does that. It's magic. It's so yummy.
Wow. Okay. The more we're talking about food, the more I'm going to start drooling, which is really embarrassing. But Jennifer, how about your family?
I have to tell you, my favorite pie, my mom made chocolate strata pie.
Ooh.
And it had a real crust, and it had these layers of meringue and a thin layer of dark chocolate, and then kind of a milk chocolate. And I don't know, that's one of the things I'm going to miss this holiday with my mom being gone is her rolls. I think I can do those, but replicating this pie, I need a week off of vacation, Chris. So,
for the sake of pie, you should take it.
Okay.
To me, that's worthwhile. Absolutely. So the Garrises are having apple, pecan, pumpkin, and pumpkin with pecan. Wow. I hope you guys start at 10 in the morning so you can get through all this. That's incredible. Wow. I actually don't know what the pies we're doing. So we're not actually having turkey this year. So I'm not sure exactly what we're eating because we're eating with someone else, but so I'm not sure what the pies are, but tomorrow we're starting to do the baking and cooking. So though our oven door decided not to close yesterday, so that could make a very exciting Thanksgiving. We'll try to get that fixed. I want us to move away from food for a minute, though food is one of my favorite topics. And I want to talk a little bit about including kids in Thanksgiving. So I think as a grandparent, one of the things you think about is when you have kids in the family and it basically becomes an inhale storm. And this is true of older kids as well. And you can't keep them at the table. So what kinds of, I know you've all thought about activities for kids, helpful to think about as we think about grandchildren who are not with us. And as even if we have kids at the table. So could we talk a little bit about fun activities for kids at Thanksgiving and how to get them involved?
I haven't thought about how to do this virtually, but one of the things I love, we haven't done it in a long time, but we used to do it when our kids were little, is somehow we have like a body of a turkey, like a drawing of a body of a turkey, like on cardboard, construction paper or whatever, and then cut out little strips of other colored paper and had the kids either draw a picture or write down something they were thankful for, and then paste it up or tape it up on the body of the turkey.
So you kind of get the feathers and the tail out of the.
Yeah, this kind of makes the turkey then. That was fun to do like all month or whatever before, but I think you could also do it during the meal because that would give them something to do that was active.
Yeah.
Get up from the table.
And often kids don't like Thanksgiving food, so keeping at the table doing something would be fun.
Yeah,
other ideas for activities or crafts.
Mine are less cute. For our family growing up, Thanksgiving was a formal meal, and so it's when the china came out, the fancy glassware, iron tablecloths, the whole thing, and I can remember an aunt or an uncle teaching us as kids to dip our finger in the water glass and start to circle the rim and the chorus. And suddenly you learned all these little tricks that could entertain you at the table. And I was just thinking about how, I don't know how this happened, but there was an expectation that everybody stayed at the table. And so even if you blew through your bland meal or your 5 rolls, you still had to stay. And it was the 1 or 2 times a year, Easter, Christmas, maybe also, where the expectation was you hung out. And so it turned more for us into a time of storytelling. And there was something that you just got settled and you just waited. And then after the main, this is kind of funny, but when Dawn and I were first married, we're sitting at the dishes had kind of left and we're all still at the table, less about kids, but he fell asleep. He'd eaten so much and he's with his new in-laws and he would just fell asleep.
Nice.
But anyway, I think that, that's one of the things we're trying to teach our kids is how to stay and how not to eat and run. So I'm with teens now. So we have to think about not so much the craft, but think about no phones at the table, none of the things that grab your attention. This is a time where we're just going to be together.
Yeah. So in some ways it's helpful to teach our children how to tell stories. Mm-hmm. So to think, you may have to prompt them to think of ways that they could talk about themselves or something they're thinking about, not just a story from what's just happened, because especially in the teenage years, it's often hard for kids to think of things, even though they do have a lot of stories. And so try to get kids to stay at the table, I think is really critical. Even as our kids get older. Jill, what thoughts do you have about helping kids stay involved?
I actually just saw a really cool idea this morning on the Today Show. Maybe some of you saw it. This one family was featured and they went to tell about it and then their Zoom video froze. So they missed their moment on TV, but luckily they prepped the Hoda on what they were going to say. They bought a light colored tablecloth 20 years ago, like a cream color, and they use it every single year on their table for Thanksgiving. And everybody in their family every year takes markers and writes down what they're grateful for on the tablecloth. Mm-hmm. And if you're a kid, you'll draw a picture. And they bring that out every year and just add to it. So they held it up and it had all of this history on it. But I thought that was a beautiful thing of being okay with the table not looking perfect. Maybe they had fancy dishes they set on top of it, but just that you could write stories, or you could look back and say, oh yeah, that was the year we faced this really hard thing and that happened. Or, oh, look, little Wyatt outlined his hand on the tablecloth, or so something that everybody could do while you're sitting. I also thought about Jennifer, because that's how my family was growing up. We had the nice china and we had to sit at the table. And I remember putting olives on every one of my fingers. I don't know anybody else.
Really?
You got the relish dish out there. I don't know why my grandma always thought we needed olives with Thanksgiving, but they were always there. Maybe because that's what us kids would do after we're done eating, load up our fingers and play and then eat them. But these days, if I was back with my traditional family, we have the big table set up, and the adults often keep sitting and chatting. And then I moved down to the floor that's right there with we have some toddlers in the family now. So we're all still in the same room together, but they're, playing with Play-Doh or blocks or something. And so whoever's sitting there is still able to talk to the adults at the table and the kids. And it just, it's nice if you're able to have that kind of space. So they're not totally off in a separate room doing whatever, but you're all still sitting in the same general area.
Yeah.
My family likes board games, and everybody doesn't have to play or whatever. So there might be some people chatting and some people playing a game there, but you could still chime in every now and then to the conversation happening right there. Or one of my favorite games, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Color Cue, and it's basically Sudoku with these colored little balls instead of a written Sudoku game. But that one's a fun one because anybody can just walk by from the family, move a piece, and then keep walking. Or those of us who are really invested in it can sit and stare at it. But kids about 8 and up can play that game. So that one I'm looking forward to playing on Thanksgiving with my cousin.
That's great.
Yeah.
In my family, we had a very formal table, but my family was really loud, which won't surprise any of you. And so we would have this really formal table, but it was just cacophonous. Everyone was talking at the top of their lungs. And so we'd have this wildly riotous dinner at this incredibly formal table, and people telling jokes and laughing. And my family was musical. And so we always sang the blessing before we got started. And then sometimes we would sing a hymn together in 4-part harmony, but that was unique to our family in some way. So we'd have this kind of incredible family experience, but it was formal, but wildly informal. So it didn't feel you wanted to stay because the funny stuff happened after the meal. And that's where always, things were going on. So I want to hear the Garrises, Jim or Christy. They wrote, Christy made Thanksgiving wreath kits and put them out in front of our house for neighbors to do with their kids. Can you describe what that is? Oh, Jim's holding it up.
Yeah. I know I'm muted. But at any rate, so they're a kit. They're made on a frame of a paper plate, and they have a bunch of leaves that you can then cut out, color, and write something you're thankful on, and then glue them on the wreath. And so she put them in gallon Ziploc bags and put a little sign out front. And yeah, so. That's
a great idea. That's really fun.
Hey, Chris, can I just say that this year is going to be different because a lot of us are going to be talking to grandkids over Zoom, and it's really important to ask open-ended questions and to give space for kids to respond. And so it's our nature just to ask yes or no questions. Do you like school? And rather than tell me about school, or tell me about your favorite football team. And thinking about how to phrase questions in a way that give kids an easy on-ramp and space to answer it. If we fill in the blanks for them, we take their voice from them. And so it's hard, but our kids are now used to this. They're used to Zoom calls. They're doing it every day at school. And they're probably talking to grandparents too on Zoom, but trying to give some space to allow them to express themselves. And sometimes it'll take some time to wait, but you'll be really happy that you did.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and for the really little ones that maybe aren't, or even the older ones that aren't very verbal, I think it's nice to let them show you things too, like show you their Lego set that they built, or a picture they drew, or maybe their parent can film them kicking a soccer ball into a goal or something, you know, that I just think sometimes this Zoom stuff is hard for kids that are not verbal.
Yep.
And I mean, I have 3 of them that are in college and high school that are not verbal, very verbal. So it's been interesting to find other ways to connect with them virtually when they don't really like to talk.
Yeah.
So.
2 things that I've been thinking about. So our grandchildren are 6 and 3.5. So the 6-year-old now loves to talk on Zoom, but his parents have to be with him because we can barely understand him. He has speech impediments, which we're working on. But his younger brother, who's 3.5, mainly likes to run up to Zoom, laugh hysterically and run away and come back. So we need to stay on Zoom long enough so we can actually see him 3 or 4 rounds and not get off too quick. The thing that I've been noticing with college students and young adults that I've been in contact with is that they do better on the phone. And so for some of us who have older grandchildren, then maybe a phone call would be better than Zoom, because there's something about not looking in the camera that has helped some of these folks be able to talk and engage and having a personal conversation. And even I found with our children to ask them, what should we be asking the kids? And then they can prompt us about the things that they've been doing at school, or we can ask a specific question. We're just trying to navigate the Zoom and world. And the other thing is we're learning, our kids are on the East Coast, so there's a 3-hour time difference. So trying to figure out when to get a hold of them is really critical, and thinking about napping and all that kind of thing has been really hard. But yeah, we're going to spend the last few minutes together. This has gone really quickly, but I want us to talk about the hard thing, and that this has been one of the most difficult seasons I think I've ever lived through, and I'm really old, so that tells you something, that in this very divisive time, even on Zoom calls, how do we manage around the conversations that tend to get explosive, or when people throw comments in that are just difficult to deal with? We all deal with that in our family when we're face to face. Marcy and Christy, you don't have to talk about how you deal with one another, but I would just like to hear from the panel, what are some ways we can manage the awkward moments on those Zoom calls or around the table personally when people are bringing stuff up that's just really difficult? Who would like to begin? Jennifer. Go ahead.
I saw an Instagram post this morning actually that it gave 3 Ds, and I can't remember what the first D was, but the second 2 were distract and disengage. I think the first one was something about like, go somewhere else, like just don't even let it get there. And then distract was like, if that comment is made that triggers you or that is uncomfortable, you just don't want to deal with, then bring it back up to something light. And then if they keep going, I have an uncle that just keeps digging and digging and digging, then disengage and walk away, go talk to a different family member, or go help with dinner. And I think that even in the past 4 years, there have been a lot of those conversations that we've all had to navigate, and that I've had to navigate with that uncle who likes to dig. And that, I think the Instagram post put it very eloquently with those 3 Ds of just distract, talk about something else. You don't have to go there. It's Thanksgiving. This is supposed to be lovely. We have 364 other days to talk about other things. We don't have to ruin the Thanksgiving meal over a couple of comments. So that's my take on it.
That's great. That's very helpful, Lauren. Jennifer?
Well, I was thinking about if you're hosting or you're sometimes comments at the very beginning that lay some ground rules, that during a meal, we're not going to go there. We might have other time while we're together that we can talk about hard things, but that you set up these expectations of the way we're going to interact. And I think that when the hard stuff comes, we can sometimes diffuse by speaking from what we're learning and what we're experiencing ourselves. And I keep coming back to this idea that there are faithful Christians who view things differently, and we have to remember that, especially if we're in the body of faith, that we might not see eye to eye on absolutely everything, but we have to remain committed to one another. I think that principle will cross the line as well into, it's harder because you don't have maybe that common ground that you can rely on. But yeah, in some ways, this Thanksgiving might be easier for some folks because they don't have to gather. We've got a great excuse not to get together with the hard conversations. And so this year, while it's not pleasant, for a number of people, this is going to be a great Thanksgiving because they can choose their own adventure and do it the way they want to do it. And that's the thing I keep hearing is this silver lining means I don't have to navigate the hard stuff because I'm just with my people, and I'm with my bubble, or I'm with my people that I want to be with. So yeah, I don't have any good answers.
Jill, how about you?
Yeah, I just agree with Jennifer that in some ways, this year is almost a hidden blessing in some ways with some of the stuff that my family's been dealing with the last few years. And with Lauren on, sometimes it's just easier to or better for the whole meal and the whole day to disengage. Sometimes I have to tell family members, and this has mostly been over text or Facebook, like, hey, that's actually really hurting my feelings. Or this is, I don't know why you keep pushing on this because this is just hurting our relationship. And I'm not engaging back in an argument, but I'm telling you how I feel. This is really hurtful. Can you stop, please? So I think sometimes too, just focusing on your feelings and saying, this is hurtful, this isn't helpful, can we stop now? Yeah. And then, when it's appropriate and when the other person feels like a safe place almost, or yeah, we can have a mutual, a conversation that's filled with mutual respect, and we both want to learn about the other's opinions or the other side, which we're so divided these days, then I can have those conversations with those friends or family members. But the ones that are just wanting to fight, I'd rather not go there, disengage, say this isn't helpful for us to move forward in a relationship this way. So
Jim has helpfully put in the chat that the first D he thinks that Lauren was looking for was deflect. So it's helpful. Kim, how about you?
I was going to say the same as Jennifer, that I think it's helpful to set ground rules. I mean, I think that's a lot easier to do if you're the host. It's not so easy to go to someone else's home, for me, and say, I don't think we should talk about politics tonight, or whatever the issue is. But I think saying ahead of time, I know we've actually done that in our small group. We've decided we're not going to talk about politics or COVID because it just wasn't helpful. So a little more complicated when it's maybe people you see once a year, or you're in their home. I think it's harder. But my husband was joking that if we do a Zoom call with his whole extended family, which is the large one, and they're all really opinionated, that we should have little breakout rooms. Like, here's the breakout room for religion, and here's the breakout room for politics, and a breakout room for something else. And he's like, which one are you going to go to? And I said, none of them.
I want to hear how that goes. That'd be pretty scary.
I don't think we'll do it, but that was a humorous way to approach it.
Yeah. And I just want to say a word as one of the older persons on this call, that the temptation as you get older is you actually become the problem person, because you think you have an opinion, or you're worried about your kids, or you're trying to press an idea, and you don't know how irritating you're becoming. And so I think at a certain age, we all have to check ourselves and to ask the question, am I becoming agitated about something out of worry or fear that is actually driving this conversation? I've stopped listening. So I want to go back to where we started at the end of our time and saying that really is about Thanksgiving. How do we find ways to be thankful? How do we appreciate the people we're with? even the difficult relatives. And I think one of the disarming ways we can try to approach our most difficult family members and friends is to tell them how grateful we are for them. There's something disarming about Thanksgiving and something disarming about giving thanks. So our time is up. This went really quickly. Thank you all very, very much. We had a wonderful time. Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone. I hope you eat plenty and thoroughly enjoy it. And I'm hoping it's a time to really give thanks. So thanks very much. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Good seeing you all.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Bye.